Robert is commonly mistaken with King Crimson. King Crimson was born at Fulham Palace Cafe on January 13, 1969. King Crimson is 56. Robert Fripp was a 20th century guitar legend. He never had wild hair, dark shades, love scandals, or sought to satisfy the public. He didn't pursue fame. Because he avoided fame and adoration, he became an idol. FRIP is the soul of progressive rock pioneers King Crimson, whose albums were new musical universes. They pioneered, broke every rule, and then vanished from public view. While Pink Floyd and Genesis became commercial successes, King Crimson remained a mystery, ever-changing, extreme, and unknown. What made a quiet, remote man who didn't promote himself or pander to fans become a genre's musical brain? Why did David Bowie, Brian Eno, and Peter Gabriel seek Fripp's original musical intelligence? Robert Fripp died fameless. He existed to uncover unheard noises. Early life. Robert Fripp was born in rural Dorset town Vimborne-Minster on May 16, 1946. Arthur Fripp, his father, was a punctual grocer who believed in working-class virtues. Edith, his tough and pragmatic mother, never saw softness in her son. There were no artists, music room, or philosophical books in the household, simply work, obligation, and silence. Fripp displayed evidence of disconnection from a young age. After learning to read at 4 and playing chess at 6, he would sit in silence for hours, contemplating things other kids never considered, like why time or isolation were necessary. Robert didn't fit in at school, had few friends, and rarely spoke. He wasn't a troublemaker either. Teachers said he was too smart to teach but too quiet to chastise. At 11, he spotted his sister's inexpensive, discarded guitar in a corner and felt like he had found a means to express his feelings. Fripp didn't know it was art. He just used it to exist without words. Fripp had few friends and played no sports in high school. He personally practiced guitar for hours each day, reading Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, and later G.A. Gurdjieff, being philosophers. Even his guitar playing was different. Fripp aimed to explore how music may represent abstract concepts like space, self, and he didn't enjoy performing. He never imagined fame. In an interview years later, he remarked, at 15, he was aiming to become an accountant, which his family supported. One day, he gave it up because he couldn't live without sound, not boredom. His parents were shocked since they thought the arts were for the idle. Fripp developed a rigid personal routine, scheduling study, practice, meditation, and careful journaling. He didn't drink, smoke, or party. Until his late 70s, he rose up early and practiced in silence. Guitar isn't my thing. I seek sound. Fripp told his masterclass pupils that the guitar is merely a tool. Childhood and boyhood were not tragic for Robert Fripp. A peaceful isolation and a distinct intellect lay beneath the surface. A continual self-questioning and a hidden struggle between inner exploration and social conformity. The world assessed value by how loud you talked, but Fripp chose stillness and created a unique melody. Early career Robert Fripp didn't follow the traditional musician's path at 20. He concentrated on musical structure, his own method, and philosophy rather than cover bands or bar jobs to make ends meet. He stood out in London's 1960s music scene as serious, introverted, and uninterested in popular taste. The odd pop-jazz classical ensemble Giles, and Fripp, established by brothers Michael and Peter Giles, recruited Fripp in 1967. The group didn't succeed commercially, but Fripp began experimenting with music as a living structure that could be intuited and cognitively sensed. Based on that basis, he and others created King Crimson in 1968. More like a collaborative artistic statement than a band. Though he rarely sang or talked, Fripp oversaw all aspects of the creative process, including arrangements, sound, stage philosophy, and record artwork. He believed the band's sound evolved persistently, regardless of trends. In October 1969, they released their debut album, In the Court of the Crimson King. Caused immediate sensation. It contained weird mellotron stretches, vicious, growling guitar lines, ritualistic melodies, and apocalyptic lyrics that rock had never attempted. A mind-blowing eruption of perspective, according to Rolling Stone. Pete Townsend of The Who called it progressive rock's first masterpiece. Success wasn't Fripp's goal. Internal strife followed months later. After Ian MacDonald, Greg Lake left. Others couldn't manage Fripp's relentless accuracy and refusal to compromise. Despite this, he stayed calm. Fripp saw no formal King Crimson members. Only music was designed to last. No band was formed to preserve it. I formed a band to discover what no one had heard before, Fripp once said. Over the next 5 years, he kept rotating the lineup and released albums like Lark's Tongues and Aspic, Starless and Bible Black, and Red, each radically different, extreme, and ahead of its time. Fripp wasn't seeking stability. He was pursuing something bigger, a kind of music capable of altering consciousness, both sacred and chaotic, and this was only the beginning. Career success at a time when progressive rock bands were reaching their commercial peak in the early 1970s, Robert Fripp quietly took a different path. To him, success wasn't about how many records were sold or how large the audience was. It was about how deeply music could reach into human consciousness. After King Crimson released 3 consecutive albums in 1973 to 1974, Lark's Tongues and Aspic, Starless and Bible Black Red, Fripp abruptly announced the band's dissolution. The reason? He felt that music was turning into a product rather than an experience. "We were no longer creating rituals, we were selling tickets," he said. While fans were bewildered and critics lamented the decision, Fripp withdrew from the stage and went into retreat. During this period, he studied under J.G. Bennett, a British mystic who taught Gurdjieff's philosophy. Fripp participated in meditation courses, performed manual labor, and lived like a monk. He saw this as a process of cleansing the artist's mind so he could return to music untainted by ego. And when he returned, Fripp didn't reform King Crimson. Instead, he dove into a series of boundary-breaking projects, defying every convention. In 1977, he played on David Bowie's Heroes album. Was Fripp's haunting, distorted, long-sustained guitar work, sounding as if it echoed from another dimension, that gave the title track its surreal character. Bowie saw Fripp not just as a musician, but as a summoner of sound from beyond reality. That same year, he collaborated with Brian Eno, releasing No Pussyfooting and later Evening Star, pioneering ambient albums that used tape loop techniques Fripp dubbed Frippertronics. There were no clear melodies, no rhythms, only evolving layers of sound opening into a purely meditative sonic space. Fripp also appeared on Peter Gabriel's debut solo album, collaborated with Daryl Hall, Blondie, Talking Heads, and taught in his own workshops, where he passed on the idea of music as a spiritual path. In 1981, he revived King Crimson, but in an entirely new form. New lineup, new sound, new philosophy. The album Discipline marked a turning point, blending post-punk, minimalism, and meditative thought. While many old bands stagnated with recycled formulas, Fripp stayed a step ahead, never repeating himself. "I don't want to become the past of myself. I want the music to still be happening, not remembered," said Fripp. At every stage, he dismantled what he had built. Not out of disdain, but because he refused stagnation. For Fripp, music wasn't a career, it was a ritual journey, sacred, transformative, and unending. Disputes, conflicts, and upheavals. Robert Fripp wasn't just an unpredictable artist, he was an extremely difficult person to work with. To Fripp, music was a sacred ritual, and anyone who failed to treat it with absolute seriousness was considered on a different plane of consciousness. Over more than 5 decades, King Crimson went through lineup changes almost with every album. Fripp never tried to keep the band stable, believing that stability led to stagnation. But this philosophy also sparked countless conflicts. Legendary drummer Bill Bruford once shared, "Fripp is a creative genius, but he demands total control, from every drum beat to how you stand on stage." Many musicians left Crimson in frustration, not because of the music, but because they couldn't endure the psychological pressure of working with him. Even longtime collaborators like Adrian Belew weren't immune to conflict. In 2013, Fripp announced his retirement from the music industry, citing a loss of faith in the mutual respect between artist and system. Not long after he reformed King Crimson, without inviting Belew back, causing controversy among fans. Fripp offered no explanation, stating only, "Emotion is not the measure of artistic decisions." But Fripp didn't only clash with fellow musicians. He waged a long and bitter battle with the record industry. For years, labels like EG Records were accused by him of exploiting King Crimson's copyrights and re-releasing recordings without his consent. Fripp sued, wrote open letters, and publicly condemned the music industry as structurally exploitative and ethically bankrupt. In the mid-1990s, he founded Discipline Global Mobile, DGM, his own record label, built on principles of transparency, fair profit sharing, and respect for creative rights. DGM became a reference model for many independent artists to follow. Another upheaval came from his public image. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Fripp unexpectedly appeared in a YouTube video series called Sunday Lunch, playing guitar while his wife, singer Toya Wilcox, dressed outrageously, danced, and sang rock classics. Many were stunned. Was this the same stoic Robert Fripp? The public was divided. Some claimed he was destroying the legendary image. Others saw, perhaps for the first time, that Fripp was genuinely having fun. Fripp's response was brief. If an artist can't laugh at himself, then he's worshipping his ego, not the music. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. Because more than anyone, Robert Fripp understood this truth. The price of absolute freedom is being misunderstood your whole life. Personal life offstage. Robert Fripp did not live like a rock legend. No parties, no mobs of fans, not even a TV in the living room. He lived like a modern-day hermit, waking at 6 a.m., practicing guitar in silence, meditating, reading philosophy, and recording every thought in fountain pen into worn leather-bound notebooks. But his personal life was not entirely solitary. In 1986, Fripp married singer-actress Toya Wilcox, a rebellious punk icon of 1980s Britain. It was a marriage no one saw coming. He, stoic, introspective, disciplined; she, fiery, free-spirited, unafraid to wear bright red lipstick and belt out, want to be free, in the middle of a crowded street. They lived together in an old house in Worcestershire. Secluded, timeless, filled with books, instruments, and sunlight. No children, no scandals, no display. For over 3 decades, they've kept their life private. No music industry galas, no stepping into the celebrity circus. But within that quiet world, they shared one vital thing: absolute respect for individual freedom. Fripp once said, "Toya doesn't need me to fully understand her. She needs me to allow her to be herself, and vice versa." While he immersed himself in experimental music projects, she acted in theater, appeared on television, wrote books, and painted. They didn't do everything together in the usual sense, but they were each other's safe place to return to. In 2020, as COVID-19 spread in the UK went into lockdown, Toya had a quirky idea: film YouTube videos of the two of them performing rock songs in their kitchen. Fripp initially refused, but then agreed. Not for the music, but for her. And so the Sunday Lunch video series was born, featuring a sharply dressed stoic Fripp playing Metallica riffs on guitar while his wife danced wildly, dressed up in absurd costumes and shouted cheeky lyrics. The videos went viral, viewers laughed and scratched their heads. Was this really the cold, distant Fripp from King Crimson? He didn't care. This was how he expressed love, not through words, not in grand romantic gestures, but by giving the one he loved the freedom to live fully in her own way. Robert Fripp's personal life wasn't a gentle ballad. It was a counterpoint between stillness and motion, between meditation and rebellion, between philosophical silence and bursts of laughter echoing from the kitchen, and perhaps only in that life his music finally rest in peace. Legacy and influence. Robert Fripp never set out to become a legend, but by refusing to be an icon, he became the icon of refusal itself. In a music world where success is often measured by charts and follower counts, Fripp left behind a different legacy: radical creative independence and a musical philosophy no other artist has managed to replicate. Fripp's first and greatest impact was on progressive rock. King Crimson wasn't just a pioneering band in the genre, it was a continuous laboratory where rock, jazz, classical, ambient, noise, and even meditation collided, experimented, and transformed. Every album was its own universe, never repeated. Without King Crimson, there might not be Tool, Dream Theater, Porcupine Tree, or even Radiohead. Steven Wilson, leader of Porcupine Tree, once said, "King Crimson is the unfinished map of progressive rock, and Fripp is the one who drew every line with his own hands." But Fripp's influence extended beyond sound. He left behind an ideology where the artist isn't someone who pleases the market, but one who searches for truth through every note. Through his label Discipline Global Mobile, DGM, he championed transparency in earnings, defended artist rights, and opposed the exploitation of creative intelligence for profit. In numerous writings and lectures, he emphasized, music is a moral act. If it's not honest, it dies before it's ever heard. His Guitar Craft School, founded in 1985, was another major legacy. It didn't just teach technique, it was a spiritual journey where students were trained in posture, breathing, silence, and how to listen to sound as a living being. Many renowned artists attended and later called it a meditation school through sound. Fripp also helped pave the way for modern ambient music, especially through his albums with Brian Eno, like No Pussyfooting and Evening Star. His Frippertronics technique, using tape loops to layer sound, would later influence everyone from Aphex Twin to 9 Inch Nails. And yet, perhaps Fripp's greatest legacy doesn't lie in any recording. It lies in the idea that an artist can live outside every system simply by staying true to their path. No media campaigns, no shouting for attention, just a guitar, an independent mind, and the courage to say no. A single honest note can outlast a fake career that spans 40 years, Fripp once wrote. And maybe, precisely because he never tried to become anyone else, Robert Fripp became himself. A singular, irreplaceable figure in the history of modern music. Present life. Robert Fripp will turn 79 in 2025. But unlike the image of an aging artist quietly living in nostalgia, he still wakes up at 6 a.m. every day, practices guitar, meditates, and records his thoughts in a leather-bound notebook kept by his bedside. To Fripp, age isn't an endpoint. It's just another stage in the creative journey. He and his wife, Toya Wilcox, still live in their old house in Worcestershire, where the stone walls are covered in moss and the only sound each morning is the gentle hum of guitar strings. They don't throw parties, they don't entertain strangers, but they work every day as if still in their prime. After announcing his withdrawal from the music industry in 2012, Fripp was thought to have retired. But then he returned, stronger than ever. In 2013, he reformed King Crimson with a new lineup, not to follow the times, but to move against them. They released Radical Action to unseat the hold of Monkey Mind, Meltdown, Live in Mexico City, and performed shows like Sacred Rituals. No LED screens, no choreography, no colorful lights, just sound. Pure, raw, and uncompromising. Since 2020, Fripp has become unexpectedly famous in a way no one could have predicted as a YouTuber. In the Sunday Lunch video series, he appears in a sharp suit, playing heavy metal classics like Enter Sandman and Chop Suey, while Toya dances, dresses up in outrageous costumes, screams lyrics, and sometimes cracks eggs on his head. The videos went viral, racking up millions of views, turning Fripp into a strange kind of internet icon, half real, half parody. Critics were confused, longtime fans were divided, but Fripp remained calm. "I don't perform to protect an image, I live, and living can look strange to those who are already dead inside." In 2024, he and Toya continued their Sunday Lunch rock party tour across the UK, bringing both musical seriousness and domestic humor to small theaters. At the same time, Fripp kept releasing new ambient recordings and publishing essays on musical philosophy via DGM Live, a site he runs himself, managing everything from content to copyright. At nearly 80, Robert Fripp has nothing left to prove. There is no comeback because he never truly left. He merely moved to a different dimension, where the guitar still plays each morning, untouched by time, trends, or industry. And in a strange twist, Robert Fripp, the man who spent a lifetime avoiding the public, has become the most relatable legend social media has ever known. Robert Fripp never screamed to be noticed. He didn't live to be remembered, yet became one of the most unforgettable names in music. Not because of album sales or commercial triumphs, but because he remains living proof that it's possible to reject everything the industry demands and still endure proudly unbent. Fripp never tried to become a monument. He just tried to stay honest to each note he played, each thought he wrote down, each moment he lived. And through that honesty, he left an indelible mark, not on the charts, but on the minds of an entire generation of artists. At nearly 80, he doesn't deliver grand declarations or stage lavish farewell tours. He simply plays guitar each morning alongside his delightfully strange wife and continues to explore sound. Because for Robert Fripp, greatness doesn't lie in the spotlight. It lives in the silence between two notes, the place only the brave have the patience to hear. Have you ever listened to King Crimson? What do you think when you see someone like Fripp, nearly 80, still playing Metallica in the kitchen with his wife? Share your thoughts or the Fripp track you'll never forget in the comments below. And if you love stories about artists as unusual as this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The next journey will be even stranger than you expect.